And this automatic process that we see occurring, it doesn't matter who you are. It happens to you as it happens to me, as it happens to Diane, as it happens to Lisa. Okay? And the way we react is going to be a little bit different. Okay? The way we respond to these stresses is going to be a little bit different. Okay? The effects that it has on us is going to be a little bit different. But generally, the patterns are similar. The patterns are the same. Okay? So let's go back into the body. Okay. So if we go back into the body, the first thing I want to talk about is, again, this gut problem. Okay? If we slow down our digestion, if we're not salivating, if we're not breaking down foods, what's going to happen?
It would just sit there.
It's just going to sit there. So what can that do? Well, one, we know it can cause obesity. Your body's not reacting the way it should. It says, I don't need to deal with this right now because all of its energy is diverted to something else.
Cause severe medical problems.
Can cause severe medical problems. GERD, if anyone knows what GERD is.
What that is.
It's a gastrointestinal issue.
Okay.
Irritable bowel syndrome.
I know what that is.
Individuals can develop symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome. Individuals can't digest their food properly. They can't absorb the nutrients. So what happens? Malnutrition. Okay? There's also a very important function of our digestive system and our intestines. And that is development and fabrication of a large majority of our neurotransmitters. One key one, serotonin. Has anyone heard that word before? Serotonin? Serotonin is really important in mood and appetite and behavior. Okay? So let's think about this. Just for a moment, let's think about this. If my body suddenly says, you know what? Don't worry about producing serotonin. Don't worry about dealing with this. Don't worry about recovery. Don't worry about maintaining balance. Don't worry about your mood. What's going to happen when it gets up to the brain and your brain is trying to make balance and react to life appropriately? If you don't have enough chemicals to react appropriately, what's going to happen?
You're going to crash and burn.
You're going to crash and burn. And oftentimes, depression, anxiety, they take in and they take over. And it's not because the person isn't doing enough, not because they're not taking care of themselves, not because this, but because their stress levels are so high that their body no longer can produce the chemicals, or let alone enough chemicals, to even maintain balance. And if you can't maintain balance and you're constantly going at a negative, it goes down and down and down. Yeah, you're going to have your ups, but you're going to have bigger downs. You're going to have your ups, but you're going to have bigger downs. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so next area is the muscles. And in the muscles, sometimes we have muscle fatigue, we have muscle pain, we have tension, we have tightening, okay? Does anyone have muscle cramps? Okay? Yeah. And a lot of that has to do because your body's so used to getting so much energy from your stress and it's boom, 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 boom. Sometimes it's not getting enough. So it tenses up. And that stresses us out when we're having a muscle spasm, right? So it can get the effect that it wanted. Something to think about. We know research is showing that people are having a higher chance of developing osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, okay? Bone density loss. Individuals who are chronically stressed, these are individuals, they're going to have more prone to infections, more prone, I mean, not just infections, but I was trying to say fractures, okay? And that could be something simple as sitting and twisting because the bone is so brittle that a fracture occurs and you didn't even fall down, okay? We already mentioned the blood pressure, okay? That's going up because your heart's beating faster and it's pressing harder. So what's going to happen? If you're constantly forcing harder, eventually you're going to tire out, right? Okay? This is why we see 24-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 60-year-olds dying from heart attacks, seemingly out of nowhere, dropping dead. Because they're so stressed out. Because their body's working extra hard. So what happens if you think about it, if you've ever gone outside and you played with a hose and you turn the water on and there's water coming through the faucet at a steady rate, and you turn it all the way up so it's going as fast as you can, and you kink the hose what's going to happen? It's going to stop. Pressure's going to build up, right? And then when you first open it, what happens? There's like a flood of water goes out, even faster than it's ever come out before, right? Think about that when you're messing with your heart. Your heart is compressing and pushing and compressing and pushing. And eventually, if you continue to do that with that hose, it's going to weaken the hose, right? It's going to cause the hose to break. And that's kind of what's going to happen with our arteries and our vessels and our veins. That overwork, that overpressure, when you are stressed out, and then when you're not stressed out, it can't even relax because the normal state is just in recovery mode from the overworked state. And there's no true rest for your internal system. Okay? And how important is this up here in our picture of the brain? Okay? So if you do get a chance to look at this, the circle of Willis, this guy that looks kind of like a cartoon character, okay? That's our very important arteries in our brain. Okay? If we look, we have the blue and the red. Red means it's receiving oxygen, and blue it's reuptake the carbon dioxide. And you look at this brain picture and just how important it is for your body to get the proper blood flow. And if your heart's constantly doing all this extra work, the time when you're not stressed out, again, it's in recovery mode. Okay? That's why we're seeing individuals having strokes and hematomas more commonly. We have people who are having aneurysms. Okay? Just from stress alone. Okay, let's move on up. Now we've talked about that sad story. Heartburn. Any individuals experience heartburn when they're stressed out? How about feeling flushed or sweaty? Okay, some things that can occur as well. And again, if you're pulling, your energy from your organs and you're putting it to your limbs and you're not using your limbs, you're just robbing energy. It's the old phrase, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Okay? And then we'll go over here to this immune system. Okay? So chronic inflammation. Individuals who are stressed out, they're going to be chronically inflamed because their body's constantly on high alert. Okay? Healing times. Slow way down. Okay? So when you're stressed out, you don't heal as fast. Okay? They've done a number of studies. They did a study where they had individuals who I believe it was a law school. It was a law school or medical school. I can't remember exactly which one. What they would do is they would do a little prick where they would cut them on their arm willingly. It's a study. Okay. And they would check how long it takes to heal. They would do that during normal times of the year, and then they would do it during finals weeks. When the individuals, and some people wouldn't heal for 2 to 3 weeks during those final weeks because their body is so focused on other things and stressed out so much that the healing times slow down. Caregivers, it's the same thing with us. If we're in a chronically stressed out situation, the rate at which we heal will be much slower because we're distributing our resources for other things. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Now there's one more thing I want to talk, again, connected to the body. We're going up to the brain. I don't know if this looks like a brain to you. That's just an attempt. Okay, so our brain. This is the centerfold. This is the main apparatus with which we come up with our beliefs, with which we forge our thoughts, which we have our perspectives, and we develop perception to see things. Okay, this is our primary resting place of our feelings. Okay, your brain's divided up into 3 different categories. A most basic mammalian brain, reptilian brain, okay, this basic kind of reptile-like, and it has the desire to reproduce, it has the desire to be defensive. That's where our initial fight or flight or freeze comes from, okay? It gets the body moving, it happens automatic. These are automatic processes, okay? Next level up, we'll see this mammalian brain. Okay, so this is where we have our dog, and our dog seemingly has some gratitude, or our cat seems loyal and friendly and joyous whenever we walk in the door. But lizards and reptiles, they tend not to have those kind of emotional states. Well, they have an extra layer of brain, this mammalian brain, okay? So this is where our emotions are, also called our limbic system. If we look over here, our limbic system is right here, a picture of it, okay? And you can see all those different little areas that are important with that. One important part in our limbic system is our amygdala, okay? Remember fear? Okay, so we're working in our limbic system. We have to deal with our emotions. This is our second part. But in addition to our emotions, we have this next level. This next level on top of this is called our prefrontal cortex. Okay, that's over here, and that's our prefrontal cortex. Okay, and this is the part of us that allows us to think about things in the future. This allows us to plan, to differentiate tasks, to multitask, to have a conscience. Okay, so if we think about it, a dog really doesn't have a conscience. They don't get together and say, we're voting for Susie because she, brings better food in, or whatever it is. They don't get together and form committees. They don't have that ability to do that. Okay? When a dog or a pack of animals or wolves, they want to fight. They fight it out. Aggressive, right? Humans, we've developed this concept of, I don't like you and I don't like what you're doing. I'm going to tell you about that. See how it goes, right? That's a little bit more of a better method to deal with problems that you have. It may not be the best, but we're getting there, right? Okay? We can deal with these thoughts. We can deal with these emotions. We can deal with our feelings. But if all our energy or some of our energy is going to something else, if it's being forced to keep our body in a reactive mode, in a high stress mode, to keep ourselves alive, keep us defensive, what's going to happen? Energy for our thoughts and our thinking, through our conscience, through our desires, through our wills, through our emotions. All that's going to get mixed up, and it's not going to have the proper time to, develop. Say if you grew up in a situation where as a child you were abused. Therefore, if that occurs, there's going to be a big part of you that's going to be slower in developing because you're dealing with certain types of traumas. Okay? Or maybe we're dealing with the individual whose marriage fell apart. Okay? I spent and invested so much time in here, and I constantly think about it, and what mistakes did I make? And so your thoughts can seemingly activate this stress cycle over and over and over again. Okay? So there's one thing I want to highlight now that we've talked about some of those different components, and this is this concept of psychoneuroimmunology that connects the psychology of the thinking, the thought, the behavior, and the mind to the immune system. Okay? And so with psychoneuroimmunology, they look at how thoughts, how behaviors, how patterns of choice influence and affect your stress systems. Okay, does that make sense? Pretty straightforward. So, how it affects stress systems also affects how you respond to the stress system. As I mentioned, if you're stressed out, your immune system is going to be a little bit compromised. Okay? So, one of the really interesting tools of psychoneuroimmunology is this concept of biofeedback. It's looking at your body states, becoming aware of them, and then changing them. Okay? One of the simple, most effective ways to do this is through breathing exercises, meditation, yoga, okay, Tai Chi, all these different types of running, jogging, okay, activities that are aerobic, that cause you to breathe, that cause you to focus on your breathing, that will allow you to begin to take care of yourself in a new way, okay? A simple way to understand this is by practicing, okay? So what we're going to do now, unless anyone has any objections, is to practice a simple, short breathing exercise. And this is just, again, a simple guided meditation that will show us and provide us with some insight as to how we can develop a practice. Because if right now someone tells you, just take a breath, just calm down, and you're in a high stress situation and you haven't learned the tools of how meditation practice works and how to use the breath to calm you down, when someone says take a breath, that's just going to take you off even more. And it maybe it has.
Telling me to calm down.
Right. Who are you to tell me to calm down, right? So I'm not going to tell you that. All I'm going to ask you to do is just take a breath, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to practice this, and then I'm going to explain what the purpose of it is and how this relates to the next part of our class when we talk about the wellness model. Fair enough?